too. The transition is from amateur to pro is really, interesting to people because there's a multitude of reasons as to when a fighter's ready, why they're ready, who's encouraging them, the hesitations they might have. So tell us about your specific experience going from, amateur and turning pro.
The difference is in the amateurs, you fight a lot more frequently. You fight one day, another day, another day. And so you got to keep making weight throughout these days. And when I was in the amateur, not anymore, we had headgear. So, you feel more protected back then because you had headgear. Now, from what I heard, the amateurs, they don't have headgear, which, when I heard about that new regulation come into effect, I was kind of against it because, you can still collide heads and stuff, even though they still have bigger gloves in the amateurs because I believe they're at like 10s or 12s. You can still collide heads, especially without headgear, and that's a lot of scar tissue on your body. You don't want to have 3-4 years in the amateurs, and let's just say you keep getting cut over the eye. By the time you go in the pros, you don't want to have that scar tissue on your eye. That's why I've always been against the no headgear policy.
Interesting. And then what were some of the main factors in why you decided to turn pro when you did?
I just felt like ever since I've been boxing, I've always wanted to be a world champion. And, you could become a world champion, but not the belts that I wanted in the amateurs. That's the reason. I've always been out to win a world title just to say I can do it to myself. Because, ever since I was a little kid, I would always tell myself, I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I know I could. And there was a point after I had lost to MJ that I was just like, you know what, I'm done. I couldn't do it. I took some time off, and I started working at a regular job. And a year went by and I kept working, I got a little heavier. Okay, I take it back. I got heavier, not a little heavier. I gained some weight. So I told my wife, I was like, I'm going to go start going to the gym because I was like, I feel sluggish. I feel big. So I started going back to the gym. I started going to Raw Time boxing, because of my schedule and stuff like that. So I started going there at nights, and I started going. I was like, man, I started missing it. I started missing up the gloves, the competing, the making the weight. Even though when you're making weight, that's the worst feeling in the world. You miss it. I missed it. I missed all that stuff. I missed the hunger, the thirsty part. The nerves you get, like the good nerves, because I like to categorize two different kinds of nerves. There's nerves that you can get that are those good nerves, the ones that you can control, and then there was one time that I did get nerves. We just, it was just you can't control it. It's hard to say. So I missed the good nerves, and I told my wife, I was like, you know what, babe? I was like, I miss it. I was like, I'm gonna try to spar, try to lose weight. So I started training harder. I started losing weight. I lost like 22 pounds, I think. I was like 22 pounds in about a month and a half, 2 months. Then I started sparring. And I want to be honest with you, I did terrible the first time I was at sparring. I did terrible. I remember I did terrible. I was like, man, I wasn't doing good. And one day I did really, really bad. And I came home and I was really down. I was like, man. And my wife came in with the kids. And she's like, what's wrong? Because my wife can read me. She said, what's wrong? I was like, babe, I did terrible. And honestly, I had never told her. I had never told anybody at that point up until now. When I came home, I was so unhappy with the way I sparred. I was like, you know what, man? I was like, I think the best is behind me. I think it's time to hang them up. I think it's time to do something else. And I was here, and I wasn't crying, but I felt like deep down inside, I was crying. My wife was just like, well, babe, she said, you don't have a fight. You're not training seriously. You're just barely starting off. You can't be too hard on yourself. But I never told her I felt like hanging him up. And she's like, you know what? Take today off. You'll come back stronger. It's like, just learn from your mistakes, And I was like, damn. I was all like, she's like, stop being. I don't know if I can say it here, but she says, stop being a little.
Say it. It's fine.
I said, she's like, stop being a bitch. And I was like, damn. I was like, and I remember because I was in the same spot where I'm at now. I remember we were in the kitchen, not in this chair specifically, but I was in the kitchen in my house. And she said, come on. She's like, yeah, don't think about today. Just get over it. And I remember I was like, because at that point I was like, I'm done. I'm not going back. So I was like, you know what? I was like, let me take a couple of days off. So I told my coach, I was like, hey, let me take a couple of days off. My coach, Chewy, And he's like, hey, you know what, dude? He's like, go ahead. We've been training really hard. Take some time, because I did see you get tired. Take some time and then come back in 5 days. I was like, all right. So I went home. Within those 5 days, I really had to ask myself, do you want to do this? And I was like, it's now or never. It's like, you can't look at the past. You can't dwell on the past. You can only remember it and learn from it and move forward. And then you really have to ask yourself, can I do this? And I did. And I was like, I can do this. I was like, I can do this. I got 2 kids. I'm not doing this just for my kids and my wife and my family. I'm doing this because I want to be able to tell myself after everything is said and done, when I'm older, when I have gray hair, I want to tell myself, I knew I could win a world title and I got there and I did it. That's when I was like, you know what? I was like, all right, like it's time to get my head out of my ass, start training hard. And I did. We started sparring more frequently. Everything was going better. And then that's where I reached out to Robert Diaz, who, thank goodness he's stayed by my side this whole time, win or lose. I reached out to him, hey, Robert, I was like, I really want to fight now. Like, let's make it happen. Sure enough, he got back to me a couple of days. Like, hey, you know what? I got Pro Box. They're the most reliable people I've been talking to so far. Sure enough, I was like, all right, let's do it. Give me a date. Okay. Well, actually, let me backtrack. Prior to that, I had talked to another promoter. This was like early October. I was like, give me a fight. So he's like, okay, I'll get you a fight. So we were training for that fight on October 28th. We were supposed to fight December 9th. On October 28th, my wife and I, we get a call that my brother-in-law passed away on that day. So I was like, damn. I remember we woke up because, we heard at night, it was like 12 at night. They told us that he had passed away from a heart attack. And we went, like 2 days went by. I told my coach, I was like, you know what, dude, I need to spend time with my wife. And he said, hey, don't worry about it. Go do you. So I was with my wife. And, it was very, very tough to see my wife cry, be hurt like that. So, my wife has always been she's always been with me through thick and thin, new win, lose. And obviously, a lot of fighters won't admit this, but me in my career, I've had a few emotional roller coasters. I've had more than a few. And she stayed by my side. She helped me get back to my feet. So I was like, you know what, man? I was like, hey, I can't just leave her at a time like this. So I called my coach at that time. I was like, you know what, dude? I was like, I can't leave my wife right now. And he's like, don't worry about it. I said, I already reached out to the promoter, told him what's going on. He's like, I got you. I was like, oh, man. I was like, man. He's like, that's somebody that understands what you're going through. Because even if I would have taken that fight at that time, I don't know how I would have performed because it did affect me too. My brother-in-law and myself, we were really close. We used to hang out all the time. We used to, he was like another brother.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I would have done at that fight.
It sounds like, it sounds like your wife is a really important figure in your whole success, and like it sounds like she has your back explicitly. How did you guys meet? Was it through boxing, or did she get swept into this wild world of boxing and just buckle up for the best parts? How did that come to be?
No,